House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.
You know how we operate here on House to Home, everybody. We like to keep things timely and topical, so Liz and Gina from RE/MAX Diamond Realty are here, and we are going to talk about something that's probably on a lot of people's minds as of late, especially with the typhoon passing: flooding.
Right.
Relative to property. So you guys must be insanely busy. You both do property management too. That's one of the services your company provides.
Yes, we do.
How many people are calling in saying, I don't know what to do, I think I've got a legitimate claim, am I even covered, you know, what constitutes flooding as opposed to, you know, water just coming in? Or
Actually,
that's
you're
happening
absolutely
right now.
That's
what
that's the tip of
constitutes
the iceberg.
flooding?
Yes, yes.
And
so,
it's
so
not,
let's start at the beginning. What is flooding?
Yeah, it's not water coming in through your window or underneath your door unless it's because the yard flooded and it's coming in from underneath your door and it's not wind-driven rain. That's what we're describing as flooding. So if it was just really windy and the rain got knocked underneath your door and your windowsill, that's not flooding.
Or a window, unfortunately, maybe got blown in and then people are like, oh, my room's all wet and it's soaked and everything.
Yeah,
That's
when we're talking insurance, that's not flooding. Okay, yeah, if the window broke, that's typhoon insurance, right? Go claim typhoon insurance. But for me, this is an even bigger problem, a bigger question, because there's, you know, typically when you get your insurance policy and you didn't know in advance that your area floods, so perhaps during this storm, and that's why this issue has come up. During this storm, I have a piece of property that I have the property for sale. And the owner did not know that this house was going to flood, that water would actually rise during the storm from the ground. It just kept piling up, and pretty soon the water is flooding his property. The water is gushing through the doors and all the cracks, but it's coming from below. It's coming from the ground up.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are there a lot of people making calls, not obviously to insurers, but to you guys as well?
Well, yeah, especially if we sold them the home or the home is currently in the process of being sold. When people buy property, the question usually is, you know, there's zoning. A flood zone is a designation that states that this particular area is within a flood zone and has the potential to flood. But that is not necessarily the case on our island. Normally when someone builds, they're responsible for their runoff, for example. So if homes are building in a certain area, and let's say a subdivision, part of the developer's responsibility is to put in a ponding basin if the area is prone to flooding. They have to deal with the runoff. So in areas where it's developing, it's not a subdivision, many people are building, all of a sudden you've been there, let's say you built a home and you've been there a long time and everybody starts to build up. Where is the water going to go?
Right.
It's going to pond in the lower part of the property in that immediate area.
Or if you live at the bottom of a hill, it's going to run
towards you. So yeah, the flood zones are designated. However, in certain villages, it may not have been designated a flood zone by FEMA standards, but it is in a low-lying area that continues to draw water. So there are situations, I mean, it's something for people to be cautious about when they're buying a home, to look at those elements when they're buying, because you don't want to be stuck where all of a sudden the water rises, gets into your living room.
Is there anything we can do to alleviate that, like as potential property buyers? Because say like, I was like, wow, there's this wonderful piece of property. It happens to be at the bottom of a very, very slight decline, but I can see how the water would all run down. Can I build it on laddy stones? Can I put it on stilts or something like that?
You can buy any piece of property and the people who design your home can design accordingly to fit the lot you're buying. So yes, in that respect, you can absolutely design. But what we're talking about and what we're concerned with is that you're actually in a flood zone, but you don't know you are.
Yeah.
You cannot go, so if you have typhoon coverage, if you have a general insurance policy, right? A lot of people right now are probably digging through their insurance policy because if you had some kind of damage from this storm, you're digging through it. But if you flooded and you didn't know you had to buy flood insurance, the process to get your property certified, because your insurance company is not going to cover you if you were flooded, they will not cover you under your typhoon policy.
So once again, we have the concept of ignorance is no excuse.
Yes,
Pretty much.
absolutely.
Okay.
Pretty much. So if your property flooded during this storm and you didn't buy flood insurance from your insurance company, there's a few steps you need to take. The first one is run down with your map now to land management, Public Works Division, okay? You go to Public Works, you give them your map and you find out, am I in a flood zone? If they say no, then that's another episode because that's an even longer issue. If they say yes, lucky for you that you're in a flood zone. You're not going to be able to claim this time, but what you need to do now is call a surveyor, get a flood elevation certificate prepared for your property, and that basically is the document that says, hey, you're in a flood area, and this is how bad it's going to flood, okay? Flood certificate. You take that to your insurance provider and you say, is there any chance I could claim for flood insurance this time? And they're going to say no, because you don't have it probably, right? You didn't buy it in the beginning, but you can cover it now because that goes through FEMA.
Okay, real quick before we go to commercial break. This is fascinating. I wish we could spend days on this topic, but how much does being in a recognized flood zone affect the value of property? Say like you've got this whole cul-de-sac and one just happens to be at a lower elevation. If that one house is in flood zone, how much would it affect?
If it is in a flood zone, what the factors involved in that is your premium. Because if it is in a flood zone, as Gina said, you need all this information because FEMA will look at your elevation and then determine what your premium would be for that insurance. And that premium is added to your mortgage.
Very
And then
interesting.
in terms of value, Jason, yeah, it's going to bring your value down,
Yeah.
but it's a catch-22. If you don't get the elevation, the flood zone designated,
won't be able
you
to.
won't be covered by your insurance company. So it's catch-22. You got to get it certified in a flood zone so you can get coverage.
Something else to think about when you buy property on the island. Everybody thinks here we just live on the beach and we barbecue all the time and everything. Buying property is a very, very tedious process, but luckily we have friends like this to help along. Okay, thanks so much for watching. We will see you next time.
Captioning is brought to you by IT&E.